What will the finance team of the future look like? Will AI replace accountants, CFOs, or even the way we make business decisions? Today, I'm joined by Nick, the founder of Dexterous Group and DexIQ, for a fascinating conversation about the future of finance in an AI powered world. We unpack where AI is today, what's changing faster than most business owners realize, and what founders and CEOs should be doing right now to stay ahead of the curve. Nick also shares his vision of what the next 10 years could look like, and it's a glimpse into a future that's closer than you might think. Welcome to the Intentional Money Show, where we talk business growth, profitability, mindset, and building a wildly successful creative or digital business without sacrificing your life in the process. I'm Clare Wood, business profit coach, speaker, author, and unapologetic believer that you can build wealth and freedom doing work you genuinely love. Each week on the podcast, we dive into the strategies and honest conversations that will help you scale sustainably, increase your profit, and build a business that actually feels good to run. Let's grow your profit. A big warm welcome to the Intentional Money Show. Nick, I might hand over to you to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Perfect. Thank you for having me on. Nick, Dexterous Group and DexIQ are the two businesses I've founded. Been in industry 20 plus years, a chartered accountant and a tax agent for all my sins. And spending a lot of time these days talking about AI within finance and how it's applicable, where it's somewhat turnkey perhaps, and where there's still a lot of work to be done to give us accountants and finance professionals peace of mind and comfort and trust and reliability in any solutions.
Yeah, great. Do you know what? We might even go back a bit because I'm always really curious about this question. Why did you decide to get into accounting?
There you go. Look, it's a great question. And to be honest, I feel like I spent 5 years after high school trying to find any other career outside. I was one of those people that did Myers-Briggs tests and was like, what am I going to do with my life? I didn't want to go to university straight from high school because I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to try and figure it out. So why don't I get a job? And I worked in workers' comp and then did a sports management event management and sports marketing course for a business college in 2002, I think it was. Probably show my age there. And that was a glamorous somewhat industry, but didn't really find any opportunities in it. And then went on a path where I did hospitality jobs for a few years working in hotels and it really was unsure what I wanted to do. And then I applied for university in my kind of early 20s and got offered an accounting degree at kind of ACU there in North Sydney. And I was like, oh yeah, accounting's quite specific. It's not this international management one that I'd also applied for and got into. And I thought, that's more specific. It's up the road. Why didn't I give this a go? And it's funny, if I reflect back now, I did 6 months full-time uni. In the first holidays, I got a paid internship through the Chartered Accounting Institute over the break, and they offered me a full-time job after 3 weeks. And I do say the rest is history. As much as the ducks didn't line up before then, they did as soon as I set my path in this direction. And my pop was an accountant. And there's many signs that it was probably hitting me in the face, as it turns out. So yeah, it probably wasn't my first choice necessarily, but I think I just naturally gravitated towards it through a series of poor career choices. And yeah, said that I've never, since that journey of 7 years chartered and probably 5 or 6 years in the commercial environment, in big business, small business. And then I started Dexterous in 2015 and DexIQ in 2024. So
Yeah, fabulous.
yeah.
And what led you to start Dexterous? Was there a moment? Was there...
Yeah, my wife will always tell me that when I first met her, I said I was never going to run my own business. So it probably wasn't always front of mind. My parents had their own business, and so maybe there's something innate there in that kind of entrepreneurial streak. But I was working in a big business, was a bit disenchanted at the bureaucracy that exists in organizations of 20, 30, 40,000 people and very siloed approach. And a mutual friend of my co-founder and I in the service business put us in contact. He was doing some bookkeeping, accounting work for some clients, but needed a tax agent, and I was a tax agent. And there was really interesting. It's a date, really. The 3 or 4 coffees at a cafe in the city, in Sydney City there. We connected and I was like, why don't we try and do something here? Like a global workforce or offshore team and the intimacy of a Sydney team and cloud technology, which is what we would refer to it as pre-COVID world in 2015. But yeah, and the approach for us is always to be innovative and refreshing.
Yeah.
I didn't aspire to be a partner in an accounting firm, and my co-founder in that business jumped out when he probably started to feel like a partner in an accounting firm. And so we've always wanted to, we're a business like our other businesses that we service. We try to lose the firm and maybe the connotations attached to it. And yeah, look, since 2015, obviously experienced COVID through then, but that was a very challenging time for the business. But the business model is probably quite mainstream in a post-COVID world, having an offshore team, Sydney team or Australian team and technology. So we've gone on a journey again to what is refreshing and innovative in 2024, 2025. So I feel like I'm starting again. It's definitely with building a product in market is got its own challenges. So I feel like I'm hustling for a $200 a month sale these days, where it's takes me back to the early days when I was doing that in the service business. I feel like I've come full circle. I said to my wife the other day, I was like, I didn't really need another business to run. I was quite busy and quite settled with what I was doing, but here we are.
So tell me a little bit about this product that you've created.
Yeah, perfect. So DexIQ, look, it's built by finance people for finance people. It's an AI bookkeeper. It is our North Star and the journey we're on. And so having firsthand experience across 11 plus what my global team, 40 staff, through a branch office in the Philippines, and seeing firsthand where a lot of time gets spent within a finance function, whether you're a small business, big business, or mid-market size business, and what are the kind of roles that are being performed. We've developed DexIQ, which is in its probably 3rd or 4th iteration now, and we've started in terms of deliverables, managing an accounts inbox and preparing kind of an accounts payable run, and quickly moving into month-end close, spend analysis, and broader parts of a bookkeeping role. We started with accounts inbox and accounts payable because whether you're selling apples or oranges, it's fairly standardized. What comes through an accounts inbox is when am I getting paid? Why am I being paid? Can you pay? Here's an invoice. Here's a purchase order. And accounts payable, yes, there's nuances based on approval routing, but ultimately invoice comes in, it's reviewed, it's approved, it's coded, and ultimately paid. We've started there, and then we'll start to look at either industries or particular size businesses, because then you get into accounts receivable and payroll, and things become more nuanced, whether you're selling product or service. Also, I believe that where DexIQ is based, it's building the house from the ground up. AI technology today really focuses on aggregation of data, insights, analysis, and the reviews of documents and critiquing and preparing spreadsheets and these sorts of things. But we want to start at that ground zero of the finance function, because like a lot of businesses probably don't have an appreciation for how much time gets lost in an accounts inbox or managing AP, going back and forth with suppliers. And the attention span of people in 2026 is about from 5 to 8 seconds, maybe less, depending on who you ask. And you need strong technology and strong people to get outcomes. So my quest with AI, and everyone's different, is to not negate the need for kind of an offshore or global team. It's to empower the best people with the best technologies. We've always wanted to try and stay ahead of the curve and understand where the opportunities are. And the team are tasked with looking to automate as much as possible. And I always say to the team, no one will lose the job because you automate it away. You lose your job if you don't. It's the kind of thinking we want to bring to the table. And so DexIQ is focused on that foundational layer of the finance function, because it's codifiable logic. You're not generally putting your most experienced person on those level of transactions or at that level. You just want someone who is high attention to detail, delivers on time, asks the right questions, and there's accuracy. And that's where AI is today in terms of maturity in finance. Provided the right guardrails are there, it's pretty good at doing that.
And so what's the actual AI functionality that sits within that process? Because obviously a follow-up process is pretty standardized in terms of sending out emails. What's the actual technology doing that's different to an automation?
Yeah, great question. I think, look, AI brings a level of intuition we've not seen before. With machine learning, RPA, you've got this almost robotic, it just workflows. It's A to B every time. So with AI, you've got the ability to start at A and it says, well, I could go to B, but we could also have to look at C and to then get to B based on what the information here. So there's a level of intuition, as people would have seen in market when you look at the latest models, Fable 5 versus a Sonnet. You can just see there's an elevated level of thinking that goes on. And so I've been questioned on what's the moat, if you like, with DexIQ. And it's really focused on, it's been built off a really strong senior bookkeeper in this business and the behavioral patterns of strong bookkeepers. And it's not just a workflow tool. The AP market is saturated. And so there's a level of intuition that's been inbuilt into the platform. And an example of that might be an invoice comes in, it's got no ABN. The person might go to ABN, look up, put the ABN on. They might just do nothing. They might just want to email the supplier and say, can you give me the ABN? Through DexIQ, there'll be a pop-up box that says, what do you want to do? Do you want to send an email? And you'll click send email and it'll go back. It's already drafted an email saying, thank you for your email. Thank you for your invoice. Can you please add the ABN to this invoice so it's a valid tax invoice? So that's the logical next step. So we've built it trying to understand, okay, we're not going to solve for every problem and every use case. That's okay. We just need to be able to enable the user to intuitively work through to problem solve. Because I think as finance professionals, we are problem solvers by definition, and we don't necessarily always see it as work. The DexIQ has been designed around that kind of that framing, if you like, and so where there isn't an accuracy in the data or the invoice, like what is the logical next thing that the person would want to try and do? So that's a big focus for us. And I think in a world where you can vibe code lots of solutions, I often would say that, and maybe this is a self-serving statement because I am investing in building something, but I still believe it to be true over and above that, is that vibe coding will get you 80% of the way there, but it's software development that closes that last 20%. You need to harden the software or what you've built. You need it reliable, scalable. And I often, when I talk to people about DexIQ or AI technology that people are bringing to the business, it's like hiring someone. If AI really is going to perform some tasks that humans are or were performing, then you've got to think of it through the same vein. And so you hire someone, a junior, to do your AP MOX management. You hire DexIQ. You're looking for early trust signals. Are they asking the right questions, this person? Yes, no, maybe they've asked a silly question. You're like, oh, have we made the right decision? DexIQ, has it misclassified an invoice as a receipt? Oh, that's not great. But how is it performing? And then you pay close attention. And then 30 days in, you've built the memory bank through DexIQ because it picks up the nuances that might exist per supplier within your business. There's a memory bank there, similar to what you would see with Claude. The junior, you have those conversations, and 30 days in, you're like, I'll just check them once a week because I can see it's accurate. I can see they're asking questions. We take people on a journey when you use the software, but ultimately it's compound intelligence effectively in the tool.
And so when you said about the development and the supply specific, so is there an interface with the CRM that it's deriving history that, for example, someone's notoriously a late payer and you've got to hassle them a lot to get it paid? Is that sort of the sort of thing that you're talking about?
Yeah, so that's on the horizon, that deeper payment intelligence there. And that leads into accounts receivable as well as AP. And that's where the bookkeeper skill set, or the DexIQ broadens in its application for businesses, because you can look at average payment days per supplier. You're obviously making a conscious decision on when you pay suppliers. So that information may or may not be relevant for yourself because you'll always make a conscious decision on when you want to pay. But if you're looking at your collection side, it can look at, okay, this client, on average, they pay you on 45 days, despite your 7-day terms or whatever it might be. So looking at how we're spending a lot of time at the moment on that development journey and how ultimately it can provide value to customer zero, which is the service side of the business. What are the things that are topical, if you like, across multiple clients? What are the things that are certain per industry? That's the sort of a level of intelligence that AI is really good at today. And now with Anthropic and Xero being in partnership, you can easily extract and then extrapolate data sets to then go, what's some insight or analysis that I should be conscious of or that would be useful information for me?
Yeah, perfect. So explain to me then, because you said that the future is obviously this new tool that you've developed, but how does that tie in? So you always see that there's a role in Dexterous or in general for the human element of bookkeeping, or do you think that the future of bookkeeping is going to look significantly different?
Yeah, I think it'll look significantly different. But I think strong people will always have their place. I think people who are curious and ask questions about the technology, they're frequent users. Productivity will increase. people who try and bury their heads in the sand and stick with more traditional archaic tools, their productivity will stymie, and clients will start to hear at a barbecue on a Saturday or through the professional networks about different ways of working. And you'll then also have these AI native general ledgers. So at the moment, Xero and like the MyOps to a lesser extent, but others have their captive audience. But there's a whole wave of more AI native general ledgers that are in the US that'll start to filter into the Australian market. You'll get these people, first movers, laggards, that people will start to gravitate across based on price, functionality, ease of use, and these sorts of things. What does that do for bookkeepers? I think, look, we would say that it's a human in the loop is an expression that's used quite often. But ultimately, the AI, it provides more data points, and these data points need to be validated. And yes, you can extend that and say, well, AI can also validate data points. And it will come down to the comfort of individuals in and around how they want outcomes achieved. The finance department you need accuracy at every turn. You want integrity of data. So if you're looking at where you can have an autonomous finance function that's void of people, finance is probably not the place you want to start.
Yeah.
And I think as finance people, whilst there's a lot of a huge impact of AI in our space, a big challenge for AI as I see it moving forward, it's not so much the technology or as much as the technology and the maturity of it, it's the people. And finance people who are progressive can still find roles for them. Finance people who are creatures of habit, stuck in their kind of ways and doing things the way they always have, there'll be challenges there. So the market will move and shake people, some people up, some people out, some people sideways, based on the technology. It's a really fascinating time. It'd be really interesting looking back in 10 years' time around this next 5 years and the impact it's going to have on productivity, on business, because it's not going to go anywhere. Yes, there's going to be greater legislation in and around its use, but that's not going to stymie its adoption, I wouldn't have thought. But I often say that comments I make today might be dated next week because we're all at the mercy of an update or an upgrade from some of the big players. And that's a little bit unnerving if you're building product, utilizing AI, and how long's the runway and the opportunity if you've just got product, building product.
Someone recently told me, I think it was a client, said, "Oh, I'm not going to replace my bookkeeper because the bookkeeper left. I'm just going to use AI." Looked at her with big eyes and said, "But you don't really have a strong understanding of what your bookkeeper is actually doing." And it's the age-old saying, garbage in, garbage out. So yes, there's an auto-reconcile function in Xero at the moment. I don't know what your opinions are, but what I've seen at the moment, it's pretty hit and miss. And a lot of bookkeepers I know are saying, I spend more time journaling things to where they need to be than I would have just doing it myself in the first place. And I think that perhaps the average business owner, and I think that coming from being an accountant, it's probably a little bit more evident to someone in the industry than people who aren't. So for example, when I've seen people's reports and I'm like, but it's nonsensical looking at marketing numbers that have things in there that were supposed to be sitting in payroll and expenses sitting in the wrong accounts. We can't even use this data to make any commercial decisions because there's so many inaccuracies in it. And I think that particularly people that don't have that skill set or that ability wouldn't be able to have that distinction perhaps of the importance of having these things done accurately.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's you need to know what good and bad looks like.
Yeah.
And the good bookkeeper will know very quickly whether it was the junior that prepared it or whether it was AI, where there's inaccuracies. And the same could hold true for a strong CFO and looking at the numbers. So I think you've got to be looking at it within your finance function. To what extent can depend on how you're currently set up today with the infrastructure you have. Because there's a school of thought there, and I've got my own observations on this around productivity gaps post-COVID world and wanting to get the most out of your employees. And I think AI can help bridge that gap to increase productivity. But at the moment, I'm seeing more time spent on tasks than saving for sure with AI, as everyone's trying to figure out where's the biggest opportunity, but people are losing a lot of time in orchestrating solutions. And I think we're looking at having no bookkeeper and just AI. I think you're right. If the business owner doesn't have a high level of financial acumen, it's a real risk. Because you need someone who's got an eye for it, a strong bookkeeper, to just pass their eyes over it. No, you might be paying them for 3 hours a month, not 7. That's fine, but that 3 hours is still highly valuable and to ensure the outcome. And so we look at this in terms of our pricing strategy in and around the service, and it enables us to be more timely, more accurate with the delivery, but the outcome's still the same. And how much time is saved on any given task was something that we're working through. But yeah, I think it was way too early in the journey to be saying that I don't need a bookkeeper, I've just got AI to do it for me, and I'd be quite nervous by that.
And on the flip side as well, something that I'm seeing really interesting is also the resistance. So if someone does come across a mistake and they're like, AI is crap and we're never going to be able to rely on AI. And I remember seeing Elon Musk saying this about Teslas. And he said, when the first crash happens in a driverless car, everyone will have their arms up in the air. But people are dying every single day when humans are behind the wheel and no one.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing something in the space of cancer diagnosis. And it was saying that AI technology at the moment has a slight, I think it's like the human accuracy rate was 70% and it was 75%. And people like, see, it's still getting it wrong. And the researcher was saying, but it's getting it more right than humans. That's the bit that you're missing. And yes, it's still making mistakes and it's still inaccurately giving diagnosis either way, but it's still outperforming humans. And this, I think, is the opportunity as well that a lot of people in the anti-AI boat are missing, is that, and the entire concept of artificial intelligence is that it's going to get better and better over time.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a great question, and it's only going to get smarter from where it is today. But I find I speak to 3 to 5 CFOs a week and different bookkeepers, and there's definitely different schools of thought and its application today. And I think, look, it actually reminds me of when I started Dexter's service business back in 2015, when outsourcing or offshoring. I had bad experience, I'm not going to do it. It's like, okay, but you hire a bad employee, so you're going to hire another employee.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that? Going offshore, outsourcing is not, or maybe not outsourcing different, but offshoring is not turnkey. They're still people that require time, attention, coaching, depending on what level you hire them at. And I found
security and processes as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And so you want to set them up for success. So if you have a bad experience, you look at, okay, was it people, process, or the technology, or in and around that hiring? So people and process, and how strong was that kind of onboarding process for them? And I find with AI, there's a lot of people who, when I speak to them, they're anchored to, I'm going to tell you why this doesn't work for me. And I'm almost like, let's flip this on its head. Tell me how it could work for you. And again, I equate it to, it's hiring a junior and intermediate, and it should be treated as such. And you've got to critique it and guide it along the way. But the people are also, to your point, looking for perfection. Oh, it's not perfect, but is a human perfect? Yeah. There's a reference point. If we're asking to do what a human's doing, then surely you want to benchmark it against that human. And if it's not perfect, is the alternative perfect? So the conversations I probably have a little bit less these days, but definitely 3 to 6 months ago, there was a lot, and everything has a reference point. And if you believe that AI is possible at taking out human roles or parts of human roles, then let's compare it against that reference point. As I said, I think we're in a space now where there's so many distractions. Even your best person is distracted every 3 to 8 seconds. So you need strong technology and strong people to get outcomes. You can't just rely on your seasoned, experienced person saying, oh, no, it's done now. Yeah. Because whether it's your phone, your email, your computer, there's so many distractions, and you rely on the discipline of individuals to stay focused and stay on track. And it's hard when you work in such an economy where people are working from anywhere. Yeah, definitely there's few stigmas around kind of AI and the adoption. But I'll first admit it's not perfect, but again, the alternative is not either, but let's work towards what is perfect.
Can I ask you a question? What scares you the most about AI and the rate at which it's progressing?
The unknown. As a business owner, I've invested a lot in the path we're on. And that's in time, bandwidth, dollars. And you could wake up one morning and there could be something that looks and feels a lot like what you do. When I have to revalidate my business case, when I talk about this code 80%, but the last 20% software development. And Q is built for the last 20%, which, as we know, takes 80% of the effort. So that's the space we're in, but that gap will close in terms of how effective a vibe coded solution could be. So I think it's the unknown. It's the great unknown. You take a lot of risks as business owners, and we're all in this journey together somewhat, but it's trying to understand where's the opportunity. I think there is a lot of opportunity, but where is the biggest opportunity? And not by dollar size necessarily, by runway. How long? And the pivot for me into DexIQ was that I didn't build a service business in 11 years to have it gone in 15. And if I look at a lot of the roles performed by my global team, there are a lot of codifiable logic. It's transactional. 70% of the work they do is dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So I want to understand what the role of a Filipino looks ahead of time and make sure we've got the same amount of people in 5 years as we do now. And that's by asking questions rather than waiting and seeing. So yeah, it's the unknown though, because I'm sure the technology is far more powerful behind closed doors right now than what we know it is today. And we're only a breath away, if you like, from some of the big players bringing something to market that could just change the game. And you listen to a few podcasts around, the existential threat that's AI, and people have got really differing views. And like Elon will come out with his things, and Anthropic will make announcements on it, and you're like, is that a self-serving statement, or what's the reality? What's the truth behind this? And I think so much is we don't know, but it seems like a race to get there to super intelligence and these sorts of things. And you just hope that however powerful it gets, it's in the right hands, and it's the strong governance structure around it. But you're not sure if these private enterprises, what are they thinking? What's their main motivation?
We know the answer to that.
Yeah,
money.
That's it. Just ridiculous wealth, and that's not great in a societal sense if it's just a number, because there's a detrimental impact across societies. No one benefits from large-scale unemployment. There's a whole lot of mental health and economic but also social issues that flow from that, and that's not a good outcome for anybody. But governments, I don't think, are moving fast enough to try and mandate and enforce governance in and around this. I think they're still trying to figure it out.
And unfortunately, I think what we've seen, I'm sure you saw the famous interview where the US Congress was interviewing the head of TikTok, and they were asking him those questions. And I'm certainly not a tech genius, but I'm like, is this the people who are setting the legislation?
Yeah. It's a worry.
Yeah. So if that's what scares you, what excites you?
I think equally the opportunity there is, and I do believe there is a lot of opportunity, short, medium term. Long term, there's probably the unknown, but in the short to medium term, there's lots of opportunity. I'm finding myself talking about AI in 9 out of 10 conversations I'm in. I know it's evident there's a broad range of views, understanding, and application of AI today. And so I think for me, it's trying to understand I like giving back. I like helping. And so I've set up kind of an AI finance forum where we can talk about AI as finance professionals and share insight, maybe try and demystify it in part, but also show where it's working really well and where it's not. So getting my personal kind of brand out there is a focus for me at the moment. And because it's evident from the amount of people I speak to that the questions we've been asking for about 6 months, it's got us ahead of the curve in terms of how we think and feel about AI and maybe what we understand of AI. So giving that back is a good, probably fulfilling piece for me at the moment in being able to share that. And in a business sense, I think it's building something very different. I never thought I'd build something, but also seeing how that can impact the service business in terms of the elevation of people's roles, the increase in margins, yes, but it's more around I think it'd be really cool to look at what's the role of a Filipino with AI and Filipino. Yeah. What is Dexterous has been really good at dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but what is that whole BPO market, the kind of the bum in a seat? I think you want to be able to offer tech and resource solutions to people in future. and have the user, or the client, I should say, pick and choose. Oh, I want this, I want that, I want this. Okay, great. So that's, yeah, like I think the equal part exciting, the opportunities, but equally, given the investments of time and dollars, I'm also a little bit like, I'm putting a lot on this, and yeah, and there's just so many unknowns. Yeah.
Fabulous. So if you had to take a guess at what the average Australian business month-end process look like in 10 years from now, what do you think is going to be? Do you think that Xero will still be the leading accounting software? Do you think that people will have the traditional bookkeeper? What do you think the finance function will look like for the average business owner 10 years from now?
Wow, good question. I don't think Xero will still be the ledger of choice. I think much like Mile probably held its ground in the 90s and Xero overtook it. There'll be someone else that'll lead the way. I think Xero's challenge is that it's built on infrastructure, that there's probably a lot of technical debt in the platform, and a lot of businesses, they're trying to move to a more AI native platform, but there's going to be challenges there behind the scenes as to how effectively they can do that. So
And
there's
sorry to
probably
interrupt you there, but my perception is that because they grew so quickly, suddenly they're trying to, from being like a nimble business that was like, yeah, we've got this, everything was changing. And now I'm like, it feels like it's been stagnant for so long.
yeah,
Even Jax, the AI tool within Xero, I'm like, really, guys, this
yeah,
is a
yeah.
company of your size that we're paying so much money to is being so slow to market. But I think that it's become part of the nature of the beast. As a company gets
Yeah.
bigger, it's like steering the Titanic.
And there's an AI native companies are those speedboats just circling, and they're much
Yeah.
more nimble. The cost to develop is far less. The cost to iterate is far less. And yeah, look, Xero's been a great piece of software for a long time for many, but I think some of the decisions around the platform recently have highlighted that probably where they're at internally in terms of the product. I think
Yeah.
the fees are going up year on year. I saw just a
Mm.
post yesterday in New Zealand with all the fee increase, and Australia's probably not that different. Over 5 years, it's 43% uplift, I think I saw, roughly,
Which
in terms
again,
of
you don't
fee.
mind if you're like, this is getting
Well,
better and
yeah,
better.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's why there's been the resistance to it, because we've seen rises in the cost of our AI products, but we are happy to pay it because it's getting
yeah, yeah,
faster and it's
yeah,
getting
yeah.
better. Whereas with Xero,
I think, yeah, I
yeah.
think you're exactly right. As finance people, you focus on the cost side of the equation, but
Mm,
equally, if the value was increasing, then you're okay with it.
yeah.
Has there been what is the percentage increase in value created over that time? And you could argue it's probably far less. And also more recently with charging for APIs in connectivity to Xero, it just screams of trying to make hay while the sun shines in the short
Yeah.
term. Now, it's not a medium to long-term strategy to do that. It's short term. We're probably going to lose some ground here. Let's turn this on. We've got a captive audience. We'll bank on people's mentality that cost to change is far greater than the cost to stay the same.
Yeah.
So we'll turn it on. And I know people that are going back towards, manually batching information from a Shopify or an external
Mm,
source and then posting a journal into Xero.
yeah.
We'd moved away from that a long time with automated feeds and
Yeah.
APIs, and it was like everything was in Xero. Now it's like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to
Yeah.
batch it. And there's software out there that will batch it for you and then you push it through. Yeah, there'll be an AI native platform that'll take us forward in the next 2 to 5 years, and that'll grow adoption. It'll probably be a lower price point for sure, because that's why I said your cost to develop is far less with AI, and your resource cost to sit behind it to maintain it is probably far less.
Nick
So
doesn't have a second product up his sleeve, and I knew accounting
yeah,
ledger.
no. But it's funny because yeah, so there's so much opportunity. It's a slippery
Oh,
slope. I look
yeah.
at DexIQ and it's like, could it be a ledger? Could it be a purchase order system? No, it's an orchestration layer between these systems, and like the finance, the like blockchain technology is also going to enable real-time auditability and traceability of transactions between two parties, and so ledgers
Can you
built
just
on the.
explain that for the listeners, what you mean by blockchain technology?
So look, I'm not far advanced in blockchain, but I know it'll give you broader across businesses auditability and traceability of transactions. They automatically match on the blockchain. So how that looks and feels to users, I'm not sure. So there's people in that deep in that space, but I know from at a conceptual level, it means that the auditors don't have as much work in the future as they do today, because there's that matching of transactions and that traceability. So there's no verifications required necessarily, and there's real-time matching and coding and reconciling of transactions. Software in Conversations this week where they talked openly about the advantages of blockchain technology in the accounting space. So it's the month-end close could probably happen in seconds rather than 3 days or 4 days is quite sharp now from 10 to 15, but 10 years time, it's happening in a second. There's no such thing as month-end close. It's just another week in the diary, and you just find a trivial point in time to say, this is how we'll perform through this period. So there's just a fluidity. You're not governed necessarily based on fixed month ends as we know it now. It's just about real-time data, real-time insights. Yes, you want to compare periods, and you can do that on whatever basis works for the business. And the role of bookkeepers, maybe they're called something different, but their roles are their governance officers, or if you like, or compliance. But I think equally, like you can see through single payroll, there's traceability straight through to the ATO when payments are made now. So there's an easy extension of that towards other payments that get made. The ATO is not going to be sitting and waiting in future for information on accounts payable or just general business spent. And again, that's the thing where blockchain can provide that visibility across the board. So yeah, you do away with this notion of month-end close and year ends requiring lots of work and reconciliation, because it will just happen in real time. And the systems that are in play at that point in time will just give you that comfort and trust. I think trust, control, and compliance are focuses for us in terms of the development of DexIQ. Like, how can you see what the agent's done? Like, you can see what a junior's done. Whereas that get comfort, and then you can see that less. And I was challenged the other week on DexIQ, and I think in 2 years' time, DexIQ is just doing its thing. It doesn't need someone to look at it because it's just doing that role. But like a lot of things, that business will need to evolve to follow the market somewhat in terms of where it's going to add value. Because in 10 years' time, the way I've just articulated a future vision, there's probably no reason for DexIQ in that. And that's that long term, that unknown. That's why it's unnerving, because there's a lot of time that's being invested now into a solution that, is it only a 10-year runway? Is that 10 years, maybe 5 to 7 years? So, but you look at the US market, and we're probably 12 to 18 months behind the US in terms of what we see here. Even Southeast Asia, there's products that are being established in those regions that by ex-co-founders or senior product people at Xero. And I think they're Australian or New Zealanders by natively, and so they'll naturally, probably through personal desires or otherwise, want to bring the product to this market. And that'll put price pressure and competition on the Xeros and the other players in the market today.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing to think about what it could look like. And equally, I think there's a lot more, to your point about trust and governance. The more that we rely on technology, the greater scope there is for particularly sophisticated users, like AI users, to be able to modify things without a trace, so that and again, to your point, if people get to a point where they're like, absolutely, blockchain is unbreakable, then anyone that
and that's it. Do you eventually have a world where AI does the doing and humans just do the reviewing? You look at AI today and you're like, do I want it to do the task or just review the task? I'll prepare the board report, and then it can just review it and tell me if I missed anything, or prepare the board report, then I'll review it. People are using it in different fashions today. And I look at AI in two buckets today. You've got bucket one, which is that aggregation of data, the insights, the collation of board reports, these sorts of things. Then you've got bucket two, which is AI on actual end-to-end workflows. And that's what we'll see, kind of material shifts in people's ways of working. But I would say today that we're a fair way off that just yet for it to effectively manage. So it's a set and forget for someone. But yeah, who knows? I wish I had a crystal ball. I'm sure many do. But as I said, I find it all kinds of exciting, unnerving, but just trying to move forward and ask questions ahead of others, just to really understand, as a business owner, where are the opportunities, pockets of opportunity to add value to clients.
Yeah, I have loved this conversation. I am sure everyone listening has as well. Nick, if people want to connect with you, do you work primarily with businesses just in Sydney or across Australia?
Yeah, thank you. Look, all around Australia. So
Mhm.
we've got teams primarily on the eastern seaboard, but we've got clients all around Australia and some with subsidiaries overseas as well. Yeah, best way is either on LinkedIn or via email or is via through the website. But yeah, look, always happy to chat about all things AI and ideally put people's minds at ease or give them clarity on some use cases internally. But yeah, definitely don't have all the answers.
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, that
Let's
was
be
probably a
honest.
terrible sales pitch, but
I'm sure you've seen the AI reels where they get the two AI systems to talk to each other. It's really funny.
yeah,
Guy
yeah,
hasn't got a big, doesn't even know yet. What were you
yeah.
going to say?
I had a meeting earlier today. Actually, we both had our note takers there, and I thought, should we just jump out of this and leave the note takers to this, or it's just like you live in a world. We're not far off having AI talk to AI.
Yeah.
It's
Are we
crazy to
even
think
really here?
that could be another podcast.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, what I'll do, I'll put all of the links in the show notes for today's episode. If anyone wants to reach out to Nick, the Dexterous team, and DexIQ, they can do so via the link in the show notes for today's episode. Nick, thank you so much for joining us on the Intentional Money Show, and we really appreciate your insights.
No, I really appreciate your time, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the session.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Intentional Money Show. If you're ready for more profit, come find me on Instagram at Clare_Wood_coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the podcast, and I'll chat to you again next week.